Hey, welcome Team Phoenix. Welcome to the first episode of season 2 of this show. My name is Patrick. Here's Jeff with us. Welcome everybody on YouTube or LinkedIn. No matter if you watch the recording or if you're live with us, post your ideas into the comments, your questions, we will answer that. We will even see this after we went offline, right? So, but today is an amazing show for me. I'm really excited. We have Jeff here. I'm really powered because, Jeff, you have a really interesting journey. Tell us the main bit.
Thanks, Patrick. First off, I just wanted to say thanks. Thanks for having me here to kind of kick off 2022. I really can't believe how fast the last 12 months went. Mm-hmm. It feels like I was just getting hired here at Salesforce literally just a few months ago, but it's already been a year. So when I look forward to this next year, I think this is just a really good way to kick things off and get it started. So thanks. So as an intro, hi, I'm Jeff Lewis. I'm a lead solution engineer at Salesforce, and I work in the enterprise retail and consumer goods group. So I get to work with a lot of the largest retailers that we shop at, we dine at. So it's been a really interesting experience. I started at Salesforce a little over a year ago, and hey, Ramsey. Prior to that, I worked in marketing and database technologies at a really large financial institution. And yes, as you alluded to, I also was an MMA fighter for several years there. So it was kind of cool to do that while I was working. I live in the Midwest with my wife and my kids. We live near Des Moines, Iowa. It's cold. It's winter. We're in a pandemic. But it's a new year. So I'm really excited just to kind of continue this path that I've set for myself as an SE. And again, just thanks for having me here. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. That's so interesting. I mean, there are not many sales engineers who say I was at the sales engineering university and then I don't know, I did this and to get on the path. I think most of us come from a different world, like either it's post-sales or from your side. You have done MMA, so but you did something else too, right? You were at Wells Fargo.
Yes. Yep. I was in the corporate world as a kind of what we would call a solution architect at Wells Fargo. So very similar to a solution or a sales engineer, except it was on more of the post-sales side. I was solutioning for my customers. And at the same time, I was looking for something to keep me active after sports, college sports. I couldn't find anything. As a wrestler, I needed something to keep me active. And so some friends of mine were into jiu-jitsu. So I started jiu-jitsu with them, and one thing led to the next. And next thing I knew, I'm in the middle of a cage fighting another guy. So it's kind of an interesting experience.
We will come to the cage. That's so amazing. But this means you had a job and you were fighting.
Yep.
So, I mean, as far as I understand, one can see when one fight or had a fight, right? If you've watched Fight Club, people could.
Yeah. One thing, one rule is you don't talk about it. Yeah. Exactly. It was interesting because I was always really worried. I worked in the corporate world. So I'm meeting with not external customers, but internal customers. And some of these guys are VPs. Some of these are higher, and not necessarily the C-suite, but they're higher people in the org than I was at the time. I was just an individual contributor. And I'd come to work, and this was, before work from home, so I'd go to the office, and I'd go to the office and I'd have a black eye, I'd have a broken, a crooked nose, a broken hand, bruises. I was like, should I really be doing this? But it was a hobby that I loved, and it really coincided with what we were doing in our jobs, the adversity, the tenacity you needed, the focus you needed, the fighting, the skills that I learned fighting in wrestling and jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, all transposed over to what I was doing in business.
Yeah. I wanted to show a photo now, but I have Ramsey. And Ramsey, you see his moderator skills, right? He wants to show the progress and come to the point, right? Yep. So what about Ramsey's question? Do you find the discipline and competitiveness of being in MMA translates to sales?
100%. Absolutely. And there is a reason. If you look at most collegiate athletes, specifically collegiate football players, collegiate basketball players, collegiate volleyball players, they get hired in sales roles. medical device sales, pharmaceutical rail sales, because they have that team aspect, they have the discipline, they have the competitiveness. So what I found with, and this doesn't go to MMA, in specifically, but in general, what I found was, that focus, the stuff that I needed to be training for, translates to what I'm doing here in sales. The mindset, the adversity, translates to what I'm doing here in sales. Being able to, I don't have a good day, I don't have a good meeting. I need to be able to take that and not have it affect me personally, not have it affect me professionally, right? So it's everything that we learned, the discipline and the competitiveness absolutely translates to sales.
Yeah, and what about fears? I think I remember when we first spoke, you said I fear going to a customer, like going into the cage.
Yep. And I think what I said is, anybody in this job, when they go into a demo, when they go into a customer meeting, they go into discovery, if they're not nervous, they're lying. There's no way that you are not nervous going into this, because it's on you, right? If you fail, it's on you. The scariest moment in my life was my first fight. It was the day before Thanksgiving. I don't remember what year it was, maybe 2013. And it's called the Thanksgiving Throwdown, Midwest Cage Championship. I was fighting middleweight, my first debut, and there was maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people in attendance, and it was televised. So this wasn't UFC level fighting. I wasn't that good, but it regionally, it was a big promotion. I had never been more scared in my life than stepping into that cage, because I'm willingly going to let someone kick me in the face. I'm willingly allowing someone to, punch me, and so
you could block, couldn't you?
You can, if you're good. I wasn't that good at that point. So it was extraordinarily nerve-wracking and anxious, and I got the exact same feeling the first demo I did.
Okay.
So it was weird how those parallels came up.
So fear is fear. What is this fear? Fear to, I think it feels different, right? Fear for physical things, and fear to not have success, right? To fail.
Exactly. It's regardless if you're getting punched, if you're or if you're in a demo and it goes wrong, it's that fear of failure. I failed to protect myself. I failed to win. I failed to do what the customer needed me to do. It's that fear of failure, and that's always there. Yeah. And that's the hard part. That's the part where you use that. Some people are going to break down. They're going to get that failure. They're going to get that anxiousness, and they're going to absorb it and break down to it. Or you could use it to power yourself, to fuel yourself, to give you energy to get through it. And that's why I think the fighting helped me when I get in those scary situations. I can use that energy to drive myself forward through it.
I see. It's the same thing. If my demo fails, but I thought I'm prepared, everything works well, and then I had one meeting with I shouldn't say it, but he fell asleep. It was not my fault in that sense, but this guy didn't sleep at night at all, right? But he was so overworked, and he fell asleep. But I felt guilty at this moment, because nobody prepared me really for this guy. So what do I do after that? Give up, or I don't do it again, or I'm a failure, or what you say is use this energy, use this failure, and transform it into something in action or in.
Yeah. We learn through failure. If I get kicked in the head, I failed to block it. Well, I'm going to learn not to get kicked in the head again, right? If I have a demo that failed because I wasn't prepared, I'm going to learn that I should probably prepare more.
There's an interesting point to that, I think, because that's an often given advice. I think that there's one point missing, and I think you do it when you fight. You prepare thoroughly, right? So you don't let any training day go by without doing something. Right. Because this is often, if you give this advice, right? If we learn from failures, I just go in there, and if I fail, I learn something.
Yeah, right? You're right. We would do 8-week fight camps now, so 8 weeks where we would study our opponent. We would, if I was fighting for whatever reason, the guys that I fought were always really tall. Like the last guy I fought was 6'5", and he had a huge advantage of reach and stuff on me. So we would train. I would bring in very tall training partners because how do I close the distance? How do I get in there? If we get on the ground and we're doing grappling, he's so long, how do I pass this guard? How do I get across those things? So it's those kind of things that we have to think about as well with our demo. Is I think it's Chris White, I think his third subject in his book is prepare. We have to prepare, because if we don't, if you fail to plan, then plan to fail, right? So it's very important.
What's your equivalent of knowing the opponent when you prepare for a demo or for a customer call?
Sorry, what was that? Sorry.
What's the equivalent for you? Knowing your opponent and knowing the customer, or for the demo or the customer presentation.
So I always try to do as much sleuthing as I can, on my customers. So I will not be shameful. I will go straight out to LinkedIn and I will read everything about their bio. I will read about their company. And by the time we've gotten to, the either the demo, the presentation, or even just the intro meeting, these guys have all seen me, oh, Jeff Lewis, looked at your profile. So I just try to do as much research as I can. And then I put myself in my customer's shoes. What's their customer look like? If it's a place that we're going to go eat at, is it available for me to go? Is it local to me? Can I go to that restaurant? Yeah. If they're a retailer that I'm working with, can I go online and buy from them? And just do as much research on what their customers go through. So that way I have that point of view when I'm talking to them.
And I've never watched UFC or something. I did some sort of stuff, but when I saw UFC on YouTube or something, some trailers, people stay at each other, right? It's like boxing, yell and shout before the fight. Is this your LinkedIn visit?
Yes, exactly. It's me staring them down. That's exactly like, hey, I'm coming.
Staring down. Okay.
Yep.
No, no, that's
exactly what. But I mean, that's what I said about doing something uncomfortable. Do you remember when LinkedIn first kind of started? You're always worried about if you go look at someone's profile, then it's like, oh, they're going to get notified that I looked at their profile, right? Yeah. You know what? To me, I look at it as they should probably see that as a good sign, because it shows that I'm doing my research. It shows that I'm interested in them. It shows that I want to learn more about them. And so for me, that's a good thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Let me show you. You gave me 2 pics. I showed one already.
Yep.
Let's start with this one.
That was the 6'5" opponent. I had a good picture.
You beat him down.
What's that?
You beating him down.
Yep. Yeah. I went 6-0 in my fight, so I never lost. But yeah, this kid, John was his name. 6'5". He was the tallest guy I ever fought. I think this was my 3rd fight. So here, this would have been late in the first round. We had this is the funny thing about combat sports. We're in there to beat each other up, but when we come out of it, we're friends, right? So after that exchange, I remember this very vividly because I broke my hand punching him.
Oh,
we had a really good exchange. He hit me really hard. I hit him really hard. I'm like, I'm going to try out, right? I'd never hit a human being that hard before. He shook it off. I'm like, what the heck? So we actually high-fived in the middle of the cage. When we're fighting, we high-five. We're like, okay, we're going to give each other respect for that because it was a great fight.
That's cool. That's so cool. I forgot my question. No, exactly. So when I look at this, you're boxing, right? But I understand MMA is like you have several ways to interact, right? You could kick, you could box, you could go down. You have been wrestler. Did you have a favorite strategy?
Yeah, get into the ground. So I wrestled. So if you are from the Midwest, literally everybody wrestles.
I'm not.
Yeah, I know you're not, but everybody wrestles here. So it's just what we do in the Midwest. We're big for it. And so I grew up wrestling. I started when I was 3, 4, 5 years old. Wrestled all through school. Walked on wrestling in college. And so my game plan was to always get them to the ground as soon as I could, because and then jiu-jitsu, I trained for jiu-jitsu for many years. They have very similar. There's a parallelism there between them. I did not like the stand-up, the Muay Thai, because I don't like getting punched in the face, and these guys are all tall. So it's easier for them to punch me than for me to punch them. So my game plan was always to try to get them to the ground as quickly as I could.
Yeah. My daughter does some BJJ now. She's 7, so maybe she's in the cage in some years. No, I think the term Kimura is from BJJ, right?
Yes, the Kimura. Yep.
What is it?
So Kimura is an arm lock.
Okay.
Where you have a guy's arm here and you stretch it backwards. Yeah. It was named after a Japanese dude who invented it. It's a very painful arm lock. It's easy to get to, and it's popular.
So, okay. And when your strategy is getting people down in the cage, what is the strategy in pre-sales? Is there something similar? Because we have different styles, right? Do you prefer the demo? Do you prefer like the workshop or?
Yeah. So my strategy, and there's not really, I'm trying to think of a way to do a parallel with, getting a guy down, take him down to the ground in pre-sales. And there really isn't, because the reason I want to take the guy to the ground is to ground and pound him. I want to beat him up, right? Well, I don't have a parallel to that, to the sales side, but my strategy going into pre-sales in any, environment is I want to get as much as I can out of that customer to do a compelling demo. That's it. That's all I want to do right now. Eventually, I want to earn their business, become their trusted advisor. But my first and foremost is I want to just learn as much as I can about them, whether that be me doing research, me doing really compelling, just really deep discovery, and then trying to get to that value statement in the demo as quickly as I can. And then once we show them the demo, they're wowed by it. Then we start building that relationship and going more into, this is how we're going to bring value for your company.
Okay. And let me come back to the beginning a bit. When you then applied for the sales engineering job, have you still been fighting? So was this, have you with black eyes going into an interview, or how can I imagine?
Yep. So at that point, I had stopped fighting. And this was because, for two reasons. I was getting older, and MMA in general was getting much more popular. So you're getting a lot of younger kids doing it. And as you age, younger kids are typically faster, bigger, and stronger. And so it got more painful to be doing this. And then again, like I said, I was showing up to board meetings and stuff with black eyes, and I didn't want it to affect my career goals. I didn't want to be the guy that was looked over for a promotion because he looks unprofessional in a meeting. So I set it aside, I stopped, and then I started just applying, I wasn't fighting when I was looking into pre-sales. Now I'm thinking about getting back into at least the jiu-jitsu aspect of it, because I do miss it. I miss that competitiveness. I get a taste of the competitiveness with this job, but I miss that physical competitiveness that I got out of like jiu-jitsu, for example.
And how tough was it for you to get into sales engineering? So I heard you had to write some application.
Yep. So let me kind of step back here, because when I made the switch, when I decided to make the switch to sales engineering, I didn't know what it was. In my prior career, before I came in SE, I was on the client side. I was working with some of these companies, so Teradata and Pegasystems and Oracle and Salesforce. When I was working with them, it was really cool, because it's like, man, I see these guys are experts. I really want to do what they do. I saw how their products were helping me, that they were helping our customers, they helped my business. And I really wanted to be able to do that, but I just didn't know how. And I had, entertained opportunities to move to some of these vendors, but either we had non-competes, or it was like, it's not exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't want to do like the professional services side. So I had a good friend at my gym, and I did not know this, was a solution engineer. I had no idea. I'm like, I had no idea you were a sales engineer. And he introduced me, and he said, hey, would you be interested in doing this? And he kind of told me what it was. And I was like, oh, that's exactly what I want to do. So he kind of introduced me to some people at his job in the sales engineering role. And I'm like, okay, I had that taste. It's like, this is what I'm going to do. It took me 40 years to find my dream job, but this is it. This is what I'm going to do. That was maybe mid 2019. It took me 168 applications over 18 months to land this job. So again, perseverance, competitiveness, pig-headedness, whatever you want to call it. It took a long time. It was more difficult than I thought, but I'm here and I'm living the dream now, man.
So you would great. So you had 168 fights. What have you learned, like in those losing those fights that you won 169? Right, this was your win then.
Yeah. So similar to what we do with our customers, it's all about that compelling story, right? Mm-hmm. They're not going to buy from me unless I can show them value. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to win a fight unless I bring something of value to that fight that makes me win that fight. And it's the same with getting this job. I had to restructure my story to show them why I'm going to be a good solution engineer, why you could take a risk on me and it will pay off. So it was 168 fights, and it took that last one. I just had to do something right. And that's what got it. And for me, that was just networking my butt off. I never really knew about pre-sales. So back then there wasn't a whole lot of information. So I found Ramsey's podcast just through a search, literally listened to every one of his episodes. Grocery store. Yeah. I mean, he's got a lot of episodes, right?
Yeah.
So grocery store, sitting around at home, filling out applications. I was listening, to his podcast, and that brought me to Chris White. Did a little research on Chris White, found the Pre-Sales Collective, started networking on the Pre-Sales Collective, kind of getting involved there. And so it was that networking aspect, reaching out to people on LinkedIn, because again, in my space, if I just threw in an application, it was just going to get discarded. No one was going to look at it. It was just going to get discarded at HR. So I had to get myself in front of people. So I started reaching out to people on LinkedIn and said, hey, I see you have this position open. I would love to have a chat. So instead of applying, I was reaching out to these managers that were hiring. And that was the differentiator for me.
Yeah. And that's cool. And I think that the manager liked this too, because it made their life also a bit easier. Right?
Yep. Yeah.
So your training was networking at the end. And did you read, so obviously you've read Chris White's book, for example. Was there more that you read that you now say, this was a kicker?
Yeah. So obviously the most recent book I read was your book, which is fantastic, by the way, but obviously I'd gotten this job, before. John Kerr's Mastering Technical Sales.
Yeah.
Because again, excellent book. Again, I had to restructure my story from what I was doing at Wells Fargo, with these vendors' products. I had to turn that story into how it is, make it more about the pre-sales drive, right? Even though I wasn't in pre-sales. So taking the 6 Habits books, the Mastering Technical Sales books, taking what I was learning from those and using that information with, my experience is really what helped out.
Cool. And was there maybe also anything outside? Like, I'm always looking for books that inspire, and I'm not based on the profession, right? So I learn always a lot on the stream about new reads. Yeah. So anything?
So I usually look at this. I'm not a voracious reader. I do have a theory about people that don't read books. I think everybody should read books, but I never was a huge reader. My wife, on the other hand, she'll have like 10 books going at any given time, which is I don't know how she keeps it straight. But I look at it in 3 different types. So I always set a quarterly goal, and I look for 3 different types of books: a personal growth book, a professional development book, and then something for fun. Cool. So like right now, the personal growth book that I'm reading, I got from my team lead as a Christmas present, is called Grit by Angela Duckworth. So I'm starting that one. Professional development book, which is a great book that I have not finished yet. It's called Ask More, and it's by Frank Sesno. So this book is all about the power of questions to open doors, to find solutions, to generate change. So he would go and interview all these different people about specifically like reporters and newscasters, and like think Oprah, right? How does Oprah get all of her questions? And he would interview them to get them to open up on how they would ask their questions. And it's just a fantastic book. So if you're looking at things to kind of drive your discovery, the Ask More by Frank Sesno is amazing. And then my fun book for this quarter. So I like to play video games when I can. For the last couple of years, I've got this game called The Division, and it's kind of fitting because right now this game is all about a viral pandemic that took over the world, which is kind of like, oh hey, look outside. Well, there's a companion book called New York Collapse that goes with it, and it's a fun story to read. So yeah, 3 books: personal growth, professional, and then something for fun. Try to do that every quarter.
Cool. That's a nice goal, and it sounds pretty achievable, right? And you have the fun aspect in there too. For the Ask More, there's a similar book from, I think, Hal Gregerson or so. He's a very famous scientist, and it's called "Questions Are the Answers." Or "Questions Are the Answer," and it sounds pretty similar because he explains the power of questions. And that you have to use them in a good way to improve your life, right? It's the questions you ask yourself and the questions you ask other people.
Yep, right? Exactly. And that was the reason that drew me to, and that's, I see it here. Questions Are the Answer. I'm going to have to get that book. It sounds good. This Ask More book, I was driven to it because I remember how A, nervous, and B, bad I was in some of my first discovery calls because I didn't know the right answers to ask, right? I was new at these discovery calls. So this Ask More book really put into perspective how I needed to be thinking to get down to those deeper levels, right? Each question that you get an answer can go deeper, right? That first answer is just a transitory answer. You can dive in deeper. And that's what this Ask More book kind of helped me with.
Yeah. And is there a specific example you have in mind? Where you applied this?
I mean, just in any discovery or any client question, Chris makes the allegory of customer says he wants a shovel. He doesn't want a shovel. He wants to dig a hole. Well, he wants to dig a hole because he wants to put in a fence. He wants the fence because he wants privacy, right? So that's kind of the idea there is just to always be asking more.
Yeah. Yeah. Or the other theory is the 5 whys, right? You can always ask why.
Yeah.
Why was that?
Yep. And why did you make that decision? How did that work out for you? Why is the perfect question to ask?
But there's a downside, right?
Yep.
Why didn't you bring the garbage out, right? It's like, it's offending. Why is always a bit offending, at least in German. Maybe it's,
Nope, it can be. I think it was, I don't remember. There was a podcast, and I believe the person on there was talking about the Radical Candor book. I can't remember if it's the book. And they said they would ask why after each question. They would ask why 2 or 3 times. And I could see how you said it could be offensive. Like, why did you do that? I think it's how you approach. Why is that important to you? Yeah. Why did you guys do it that way instead of doing it this way? Explain this to me instead of just why. So I think that is important. You're right. The delivery is important.
Yeah. Yeah, I have the theory that, especially in discovery, you have to prepare questions because the question you ask makes you to the expert, right? So the client sees, oh, we have Ramsey here. Wait. Ramsey has some more stuff. Setting landmine from competitors is similar to ground and pound.
That is true. I love it. That's a really good example.
Have you fought against Ramsey in the cage?
No, he's a big dude. I don't want to fight him.
Okay. Let's stay there. And I have one more. That's a long question, Ramsey. Who should read this? Let me try. One more question, if I may. You may, please. Everybody on the stream, ask questions. As athletes, training and practice is supported by everyone around you. As an SE, salespeople want you in front of the customer as much as possible. How do you manage taking time to practice and train versus performing? Great stuff.
Yes. So and that's a great question, Ramsey. And it's actually one of the things that I learned from your podcast. As SEs, we have to be in control of our calendar, because if we're not in control of our calendar, someone else is going to be, right? I support, we don't do a pooled model. I have a 3 account execs that I support. So at any given time, I could have 3 people asking for my, hey, I need this time for me. So my biggest thing is every day when I come in, my first 2 hours of my day, I have blocked. And anyone tries to put a meeting, it's auto decline. That's my protected time. And that's to focus on what I need to get done, what I need to finish up from the previous day. And then an hour is for training. And that could be learning, and not necessarily training, but just learning. So learning new technologies, learning new features of our products that come out all the time, learning competitors' products, learning about my competitor's business, learning about my client's business. Cool. So just making sure that we have control of our calendar and putting blocks on there to say that, hey, this is my time. This time is for me. This is not for you. You'll get your time later in the day, but this is for my time, because it's important we do that.
That's amazing. And what if there was no manager or no AE saying, hey, come on, this only this time, mate, because then we will close this deal. Come do this demo. It's only one, I promise.
Have you ever read that book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie? If you give a mouse a cookie, they're going to want a glass of milk. If you give them a glass of milk, they're going to want a straw, right? And it's this children's book that keeps going on. If you keep giving and giving and giving, they're going to want something else. So if you give in, if the AE says, hey, it's just going to be this one time, I just need 30 minutes of your time. Well, as soon as you break that, format there of this is my time, this is my protected time, now you're giving the power back to them. And that 30 minutes is going to turn into an hour, and then it's going to turn into a recurring meeting, and you'll quickly lose track of where your protected time went. So it's important.
Mm-hmm. And there's another aspect, I think, to Ramsey's question. He says, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And the other aspect is deal qualification, right? So, yeah. I mean, people could try to pull you in front of a customer. This is what Ramsey asked. But how do you handle then qualification? Because I have this on my list for fight comparison, right? Is there maybe a comparison qualification to the cage?
Yeah.
To the deal?
There is. I don't want to float my own boat here, because I was good at fighting. I wasn't really good, but I was good. Regionally, I was good. And I look at the deal qualification, where you have to have the right type of fighter as your opponent. So my very last fight, they went through 6 people. The promoter got one guy. He looked me up, said, nope, he passed. The next guy came in and said, nope, I don't want to get beat up, and he passed. So it took 6 guys before they found someone that would agree to match up with me. And I think that goes to the deal qualification, where if your AE is just going to pull you in, is this deal qualified or not? Am I going to be sitting there trying to play catch up? Does it make sense for me to be there if the deal isn't qualified? I don't want to go into this deal and figuratively get beat up because I don't know enough about this deal. So having that deal qualification is important. Really important.
Are there like procedural ways that you can bring this up, or do you clarify this directly with your AE as a team?
So we try to keep everything in Salesforce, right? The app rigger, org62. So I always look to see what's in our org, what's in Salesforce regarding the deal. What do they have? Does it make sense? And then I just go directly to my AE and ask them questions. Hey, what have you done with this? The first part of the 6 habits is partner, right? So you need to have that good partnership with your AE. So I just I lay it out. It's like, what have you done? Have you talked with this customer? Are they a new logo? Do they have a Salesforce footprint? What do we know about them? Are we trying to sell them something just for the sake of selling them something and make a number, or they really have a compelling event that they need this software? So I'll just go straight to the AEs and ask.
Cool. Yeah, I have a favorite question there too. It's why will we win?
Yeah, right? That's a good one. I like it.
The AE should have an idea why. Right?
Yeah.
Some say, you should know, you're the SE. No, it doesn't work that way.
Well, most of them will say, well, we'll win because of USEs. I'm like, oh, come on now. Don't tell me more.
Yeah.
Flattery.
Amazing. Okay. Qualification strategy. Oh, tactics is a nice one. Pulkit is asking something. Let's see. Another question. Hello, Pulkit. Nice. Good that you're there. As you transitioned into a pre-sales role, was there anything that surprised you good or bad, about the day-to-day that did not expect coming into the role?
Yes. Great question, Polka. So my old career, before I was in here at Salesforce, I could tell you exactly how my day was going to play out every single day. I'd come down to my office. I would talk to the same people. I would do the same functions. I'd have the same problems that, day in, day out, it was exactly the same. I was expecting a little bit of the same when I came here to pre-sales as a solution engineer. I was expecting my days to be very similar. For like my Monday looks like my Tuesday looks like my Wednesday. The biggest surprise to me is in almost a year and 3 months now, no day has looked the same as the previous one. That was the biggest surprise. You have to be ready to pivot on a moment's notice. You have to be able to just let stuff shed, off your back, if something comes up. That was the biggest surprise. And I think it's a good thing because it keeps the boredom, but it can also be complicated because you have to be able to act quickly, and you never know, with pivoting, what's going to happen. So that was the biggest thing for me, was just how unique each day is with this job.
That brings me actually to a follow-up question. Also from my own experience, right? When I was young sales engineer, I didn't know how to decide, or actually what to use to decide. My manager said, stay longer, work on the RFP because we need to submit it tomorrow, or I have dinner with my wife, right? Or we have a restaurant place, whatever. I mean, how to decide?
Yep.
I don't know. How do you do it?
That's the problem. If you ask anybody, say I have three different people coming to me with 3 different problems, and I ask them which is most important, every single person is going to say my problem is the most important. So it's just, I would try to do prioritization off of going kind of back to the qualification, which makes the most sense. What's going to give me the best work-life balance? Like you had alluded to, going to dinner. Do I want to stay and work on an RFP, or do I want to take my wife out for dinner? I'm obviously going to pick my wife out for dinner because the RFP is still going to be there, right? I work to live. I do not live to work. What we're doing here at Salesforce and my job is a means to let me do things with my family. So my family is always going to come first. That's how I prioritize things. Now, there are times where we have to work late. There are RFPs that are due, on 2-3 days notice. That stuff comes and goes, but it's rare.
Okay. I'm an author. I love conflicts. Let's make this more tense. It's Christmas Day. RFP is due because your competitor asks new questions. You need to answer them. You are at home in front of the Christmas tree. Your manager calls, says, we need to deliver this in 2 hours. And your daughter looks at you and you say, what do you do?
I'm saying, sorry, manager. My daughter. You want to tell my daughter that her dad's getting taken away on Christmas Day? I'm sorry.
No, but I will fire you.
Then if that's the case, then that's not the company I want to work for.
Okay, you would be a true hero. Maybe the hero would do the mistake. The hero would first say, "I come, boss."
Yeah, you're right. And realistically, it's easy to say that, but if it ever comes to a point where, hey, you need to get on and do this or you're fired, it's like, well, okay, sorry, family, I'm going to go work.
And it's only 2 hours, right? No, it's only 15 minutes. That you need 2 hours, nobody knows, right? They assume
exactly.
It's 15 minutes.
Yep.
So,
it's hard.
Okay.
That's one thing I love about our job. And I know Salesforce is not alone in this. We have a lot of control, over how our day plays out. We have a lot of control over our calendar. Again, it's lunchtime here. It's late afternoon for you. We're sitting here having a conversation. We can do this stuff. We can step away and go to lunch with my kids and things because we have that control over our day to day. So that's what really draws me to this profession.
Mm-hmm. But there's a why. Why is it that way? What makes the job that way?
That's a really good question. I mean, I don't know. I think it's just the fact that we all are how a lot of the pre-sales guys are wired. We want to have control over our days. We want to be able to, it's kind of that type A, personality. We want to win. I think that goes along into it, but also we understand that when the stuff hits the fan and we need to work, we're going to put our heads down and work. we win as a team, right? This job is way too big to do as any single person. So there's always a huge support structure that we can go to. But when we have to work, we work hard. But when we don't need it, we take time with our families and make sure that balance, stays balanced. Yeah. And I think that's a really good thing. Again, I think that's fantastic way to view not being tied to your desk from 9 to 5. I think that's a horrible way to work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's at the end it's sales, right? We have to admit we are in sales, and this is like an opponent you can't judge, right? You don't know what the opponent will do next. Exactly. And that's why you're always prepared, or always like awake and aware. Maybe what happens if not?
Yeah, and that's important because I said something earlier about doing something that makes you uncomfortable, and I know before we started the stream is talking about doing this scary stuff because you don't want to. I don't want to say something that makes me look like an idiot, right? I don't want to do something that makes me look incompetent. It's that imposter syndrome kind of like, am I really good enough to be doing this? And I think that's where the preparation, I always try to be prepared for whether back to fighting or my sales motions, always try to be as prepared because you never know what's going to happen. You never know what questions you're going to get asked. And again, I don't want to look incompetent to a customer that's trying to look at me as a trusted advisor, right? So preparation is big to me.
Yeah, so that's a good keyword, I think. What's your strategy to get to the status of a trusted advisor? What do you think is a component of it, or what are the components?
I think there's a couple things. So one thing I've noticed, our clients look at us SEs a little bit differently than they look at our sales counterparts. And I think it's because, like you had said, we are in sales, right? We are sales engineers, we're solution engineers, we are in sales, but we're not salesy like some of the account reps are, right? We are that trusted advisor. And I think to get to that status, we have to be humble, we have to be concise, we have to be truthful. If there's something that the customer asks me and, the sales rep is poking me, in the side saying, no, don't answer. I'm going to answer truthfully, because if I don't and they find out, it comes back to me, right? So I think there's just a difference in how we build that relationship through trust with them, understanding their business, doing as much homework as we can, I like to have one-off conversations with my clients. So instead of member Salesforce, instead of bringing the bus, we have everybody there. I'll reach out, through Slack or through email to just have one-on-one conversations with them just to see how things are going. Because a lot of the times when you have that one-on-one conversation, you're going to get better information than you are in the group. It's more real, if that makes sense. So
yeah, I was always afraid of that. So if I use social media as an indirect, it's fine, right? So, or if there's an appointment set, but directly calling out, I was maybe, or am, too much introvert.
Yeah.
Would you say you are an extrovert person that you can easily do that?
I'm a extroverted introvert. Let's say that. And this goes to you and I had talked before. I never wanted to put myself out there because, again, imposter syndrome, the fear of failure. I never wanted to do that, but I know I have to do that. So I could very easily curl up with a game or a book and not speak to anybody for an entire day. That's the introvert part of me. But the extroverted part of me needs that interaction. It needs to be seen. It needs to be doing something. So cool. I've got a good balance of both.
Yeah. I think it's called the free trade agreement.
Yeah.
Really, I think it's a term for that you can tell yourself, for a certain amount of my lifetime, I will go over my introvertism and go out there. So that's a strategy, I think.
So how's that work for you? If you're introverted, you've got a podcast, you've got a live stream. I mean, how do you get through it? If I turn this back on you, I mean, you're obviously on camera all the time. You're
that's the free trade agreement. So there it is.
Do you tell yourself to get through it? Do you amp yourself up? I mean, how do you amp yourself up for it?
I don't know, but I'm different on camera than before. It's the camera that turns me on. I don't know, honestly. But
really cool.
If you somehow have to, right? And I have strong reasons in my mind why social media is important.
Yeah.
Like also for SEs, right? Tell me the story about how you research clients, for example.
So, well, kind of going back to your point on you said how being on camera, you have to, and that just tells me your why. You know what your why is, and so the how is going to come. If you know why you're doing this, the how is going to come, right? And that's kind of how I approach the pre-sale side. When I'm researching clients, I'm looking for just as much information as I can. And again, I wish there was a way to do it introvertedly without them seeing, that I'm researching them. But it is good because it shows them, and I said this earlier, it shows them that I'm doing my due diligence. It shows them that I'm vested in. I really want them or their business to succeed. Yeah, we're trying to sell them something, but I really want to get them a solution that helps them. I really want to design a solution that brings them value. That's really what I want to do. That's why I'm in this job. And so doing that research and letting them know that I did all this research, reading, financial reviews, 10Qs, 10Ks, all that stuff, being able to convey that information to them says, hey, this guy's done his research. He's somebody we can trust. And so I think that's a key component to this job.
Has a client that you researched ever connected with you?
On like LinkedIn, for example?
Yes.
Oh yeah. A lot of them have when,
before you met or
not before. So they'll see and they'll say something when I'll be like, oh yeah, I was doing some research. I was reading about your company. Patrick, I was looking at your profile to see kind of your background. I'm like, oh yeah, I saw you looked at my LinkedIn profile. And usually I'll get a connection request. So I was just with a company doing an executive meeting just this last Tuesday, and not yesterday, but the week prior. I was doing my research, all the VPs that were going to be there, and 3 of them sent me connection requests after we did the demo. So I think it's a really good way to build that trust with your customers.
And do you think, or from your experience, is your customer actually researching you as the expert on LinkedIn, or would they, if the AE would tell them who will come to the discovery call?
Yeah, I think it's more of just a function. They want to know who they're talking to.
Yeah,
I don't know if they're doing the research on hey, is this guy an expert? Because if I'm talking to them, there's a reason why I'm talking to them. There's a reason why they brought me into this engagement. They will quickly learn that, hey, this is the guy that knows what he's doing. This is the guy that he was brought here for a reason. And he's going to be the guy to help us, through this solution or this problem. So I don't think they're necessarily doing research on me, but just kind of getting to put a name to the face, right? Or a face to the name.
And maybe if you look into the future, let's have an oracle there. And what do you think will be the importance of maybe a thought leadership on social media for an SE in the future?
Yeah.
This was not prepared question, right? So
yeah, no, it's good because it's something that I never thought about until I read your book, right? Your social sales engineer book. And that was, again, one of my goals for this year is to put myself out there more socially and build that network. I think for SEs, it's going to be really important because our career can span so many different industries. It can span such a huge breadth of knowledge in any given industries. I think as SEs, we need to be able to set ourselves apart on that. And so building that brand, getting out on social media, putting ourselves out there, we need to be more comfortable with that and showing that. I don't like the term thought leadership, but that's exactly what we need to be doing. Yeah.
Name it trusted advisor, or like you have some golden nuggets or some diamonds on your page. I think this is important, right? Because I spare because Pooh could ask a question. Thanks again for asking. Have you considered what are your career paths moving forward? What have you seen other SEs move into after technical sales? Very good one.
That's a great one. So I am not a 5-year plan kind of guy, right? I know what I want. Whether it takes me 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 12 years to get there, it doesn't matter. For my career path, and I'm actually in the mentorship program here at Salesforce, I want to be at some point in my life before I retire, I want to be at that director level in solution engineering. I don't want to move away from solution engineering or pre-sales. I love it. I'm having too much fun doing it, but I want to get into that leadership. So senior manager and directorship level. Obviously with SEs, the big thing a lot of SEs move into is they either move to the dark side and they go to sales, which then they usually quickly come back as soon as they see the quota. We say we have a 6-month return policy in our group on SEs that move to sales. Or they move into product. We have some really good SEs that moved into like product management, and that would be a cool path. So yeah, product or I for me, the sales side, move into an account director or an account exec. That's not for me. I just don't. I don't think I would enjoy that the constant grind. But moving into the leadership is definitely something that I would love to do.
Nice. That's cool. There's a role like becoming famous. I know it from MuleSoft. We had the field CTO, which was essentially filled by a pre-sales and I think professional services. I'm not sure, but I also know it from Kong. So Melissa van der Hecht was here. She's field CTO and she filled the pre-sales role before. Now she's more into product, I think. But I think it's also a really good position actually made for sales engineers,
exactly.
right? Their technical, visionary thinking, thoughtful, very experienced with customers, right?
Yep. And I think I alluded earlier to a gentleman named Jay Stedman at Salesforce. Mm-hmm. He used his platform at Salesforce to get this career as like a Salesforce administrator advocate, right? So I don't know if they created the job for him or if it was something they kind of, it was a job that he ended up getting to, but he used his position as an SE in Salesforce, his influence within the org, his influence outside of the org to get to this job. And I think as SEs, that's kind of, we're solving problems, right? So if there's a job that we want to get, it's like, okay, how do we get there? And we could do anything. Field CTO, executives, product, sales. This job gives us so many different skills and such a breadth of knowledge for doing a lot of things.
How do you keep up with that, right? But because it feels like a Superman thing, but it isn't, right? We're just all human beings. So how can it be that every sales engineer has this breadth of skills? Or what do you think?
Drink from the fire hose all the time, man. I was not prepared for how much learning this job took, and not just product learning, right? But soft skills, sales cycles, deal cycles, just all this different stuff we had to learn. And that goes back to what Ramsey had asked about how we, maintain our time, is just maintaining our calendar, making sure that our calendar is set for things that we need to do so no one else can do it. Again, goes consistent learning, consistent asking for people for help, relying on your team, to help you out when needed. That's all really important stuff to be able to manage.
Yeah. And now someone asks, do social media, right? On top of all the other skills.
Now you need to grow your brand on social media on top. But that's good. That's really, it's really good because it's going to set you apart.
It will take away time from other things that are chores now. I'm pretty convinced. So there's a question related. I love this question. I want to ask it to you. So what's the biggest myth that sales engineers are told or tell themselves, right? We talked about mindset, the inner voice about social media. What's holding them back? What do you think?
For me, and I hope this translates to other SEs, obviously the fear of what if people don't want to hear what I have to say. Mm-hmm. When I'm scrolling through LinkedIn, for example, and we'll use LinkedIn as our social media, I see posts of, hey, someone read this article and like, hey, this article is really cool, and they just post it. They didn't add any value. Why would I spend my time reading your post? And so I'm just going to skip it. So what you need to do is be able to, how do you differentiate yourself, on social media? What's your brand? What do you have to offer that millions of other people, can't? Your job is going to change, right? I'm an SE at Salesforce now. I may be an SE somewhere else later. You never know, but that is going to change. But you, the your viewpoint's what you bring, that you're always going to have that. So you need to be able to not just regurgitate, the information. If you have something that you read that's really cool and you want to post about it, why was it really cool? What drew you? What are your original ideas on this content? And I think that's what you need the myth is that if you just create post after post after post after post, you'll get engagement. It doesn't work that way. You need to create that engagement. So
nice. Good one.
And that's hard. And that's hard because that takes creativity, it takes critical thinking. It's difficult to do.
It definitely is. But there's always a skill and a strategy behind, right? So, and now we're back at books. Maybe there is a book you can read to go on. So, a strategy book, not my book. My book is inspirational. It doesn't tell you how. But there's another aspect, and this is, I think, is also about fighting. As a fighter, and I know this from Gladiator, right?
Wait, are you not entertained? Oh, yeah.
Are you not entertained, right? And I believe it's the same for sales engineers, but what do you think?
Do sales engineers need to be actors, or do they need to be entertainers? In some sense, yes. They need to be, I think it's more charismatic, not acting, right?
Yeah.
So with our job, there is a sense of theatrics, right? There's the smoke and mirrors at different points. So I don't remember who it was, but I was listening to a podcast and they made the comparison of sales engineering to like being at Walt Disney World or being on a movie set or something to that extent, right? So from your customer's viewpoint, you're walking down, Universal Studios, you're at the Harry Potter, exhibit, and everything's beautiful, right? Everything looks great, but you don't see is behind the scenes. You don't see the Scotch tape. You don't see the framework. You don't see all the things holding that up. So again, there's that sense of smoke and mirrors. So I think we need to keep in mind that when we act, when we entertain, it may come across as untrustworthy if it's not sincere.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important for SEs to be able to tell a compelling story, to be able to entertain and be charismatic, but not have it brush off as an act. So
yeah.
I hope that made sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So integrity is key, right? For everything that you do. I just don't like the term of authenticity because it sometimes can mean I will be as I am. I'm mean, right? Or I'm whatever my traits are that I want to protect, and I don't want to work at them, right?
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Okay. Last question, and this is a bit personal. Hopefully, show us something about yourself. So, give us 2 tips or hacks about anything. The next stock I need to buy, or a new brand for bicycle, whatever.
Trust me, if you saw my 401k, you would not follow me for stock tips. 2 things 2 tips or hacks. The first thing, this is something that I wish I followed and I don't, and I need to start doing it. It's actually, I put it on my thing. Make your bed. Every morning, make your bed. And the reason why, and I don't remember if it was David Goggins that said that or it was in some leadership book I read. Start your day with an achievement, right? So if you get up and you make your bed, you've achieved something. You're starting your day with a sense of I've done something for myself already. And that way, when you go to bed that night, you're coming to a nicely made, freshly bed instead of jumbled up sheets. So that's the first thing, tips. And then the second one, we've talked about this kind of, not, I won't say extensively, but do something that makes you uncomfortable, right? Don't settle. I had the problem of what I'd kind of term as not a failure, but I had the problem of, in my old career, I was there for 16 years because I settled, and it took me 16 years to find this job. And I imagine where would I be if I had not settled and I'd found this job a decade ago, right? So don't settle. Just don't get too comfortable. Do something that makes you uncomfortable. And whether that's every day or every week, do something that gets your heart racing. So I think those are 2 important tips.
Yeah. Start with a cold shower.
Yeah.
Get the heart racing. Definitely.
Yep. Cold shower. Oh, I can't do that. I bark like a seal when I do that. I can't stand cold showers, and I know I should.
Yeah, you should. It works. I haven't had the cold for a long time. I want to share this image of you, this picture. We haven't shown it yet. So, do you want to explain where this is?
This was right before. I don't remember which fight it was. You go in the fight, and the referee pulls you both in the center, and you shake hands, you slap hands, whatever, and you go back to your corner, and you get ready. This is the stare down. This is where in 5 seconds that bell is going to ring, and I'm in the fight of my life. And so you see, I hope the lady that took this picture, her name's Andrea Altman, did a really good job of capturing the focus and the intensity that you see here. I mean, that was a fun time. And again, that's where, okay, nerves be damned. They need to go away. I need to be focused on what I do.
Yeah, I feel it with seeing this. It's great. Thanks, Pulkit.
Okay, thank you.
Fun. Yeah, and with that, I mean, the show is over. Jeff, any last words from your side? Anything you want to say? No?
Really just, again, a great way to start the year, man. I mean, kick off season 2 for your show. For me, kick off 2022 as I'm not a seasoned SE, but I'm past my first year. So now it's like, okay, here's the year of growth. So real thank you for having me on. It's been fun.
Thank you for being here. It was really, really interesting. I enjoyed it a lot. So guys, we are out. Follow the little phoenix up here and see you. Bye-bye.
See you guys.